Hi guys and welcome back. Okay, that's a bit better. So in this week's video, it's going to be the 2 episodes of Forgotten Hollow and then the 5-month update. In today's video, it's going to be a very different kind of scape. So right now we're mid-October and we're really going into this Halloween, fall, winter situation, right? And I've actually watched a film that's inspired this build. So the film is called Sleepy Hollow and it's from Tim Burton. So to make it really short, because we're not going to go into a whole thing about this film, it's like the story of the Headless Horseman, but it's not really about that story. It's more about the kind of vibe and ambience of the film. So it's really these very dark, twisted forests. And in the film, there's actually a tree. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, that would be a great idea for a scape. So that's what we're going to be doing today. The hardscape I'm going to be using for this build. So this is Malaysian driftwood. And you can see that these pieces are absolutely amazing. Like, take a look at this. Like, they're twisted. And this is exactly the kind of vibe that I want to give to the scape. I'm also going to be using a few pieces of serious stone. This hardscape is actually from a small owned Californian based company that sells premium hardscape. So in no way, shape or form am I affiliated with them. I have left the link in the description where I got this wood from, because it's absolutely amazing. They only sell premium hardscape. So if you guys are interested in taking a look, it is well worth it. Something I also love about their website is what you see is what you get. A lot of websites, you can buy bundles of wood, but you can't actively see or choose what you're getting. So every picture is actually the piece of wood you will receive, and they have some very, very interesting pieces. So yeah, it's worth a look. When I mean I'm not affiliated with them, it means I'm not actively making any money on anything you purchase on their website, because sometimes people are confused about what affiliated means. So I am in no means making any money whatsoever. This is just if you want some amazing hardscape. Let's get started. The idea for this tank is to create the tree kind of a little bit off center in this tank, and I don't want to plant it too much. So I have a very minimal selection of plants because the hardscape it's beautiful and I don't want to completely cover it or overplant the tank. The central element is just going to be this tree. So this tank is going to be for my betta fish that I've had for 2 years now, and he's getting old. So I'd like to moving him into a smaller tank as he is swimming a lot less, and just, you know, a very dim lit tank where he can chill out for the time that is left for him. In the back section, I don't know if I'm going to plant stems yet. I haven't decided, but I want to have the option to do so. So I'm going to be adding a very small amount of aqua soil in the very back, and I'm going to cap it with a coarse sand. So again, aqua soil from Tropica. It's actually really hard scaping from the back of your tank, so obviously it's more convenient for you guys to see what I'm doing. But believe me when I say, half the time I can't even see what I'm doing. Okay, so now that the aqua soil is nice and at the back of the tank, if ever I want to put stems in, I'm just going to cap it with this coarser sand. So this is something from one of my previous scapes. It's just a mix of a bunch of like very, very small gravel and coarse sand. So it looks kind of natural. It doesn't have like this one monochromatic color. So it is wet because I've actually rinsed it. I've given it a thorough rinse, so that's why it's looking like this. So I've decided that I'm going to add a little bit more in the middle just to kind of bring up the height of the scape a little bit. So the aim here, what I'm really trying to achieve is just like this tree trunk has just like gripped itself over the rocks. So I'm going to really try and place them as close to the rocks as possible. I'm laughing because this window is like where people walk their dogs, and every other day they see me doing stuff like this, and they're just laughing at me. So. Okay, so literally that was not long at all to do that, which is surprising because I really do struggle sometimes with Hardscape. So now is the tedious part. It's just gluing everything together so it doesn't move. So to glue everything together, I'm going to use, it's just standard liquid super glue. I think I buy like a pack of 4 for something like 65 cents at a shop. That's called Action. Maybe you guys have it. It's everywhere in Europe as well. And I'm just using, so this is Fast Fusion Grade. This is a fiber compound, but again, you don't need this. You could use your normal tissue paper, cotton wool, whatever works for you. So recently I've been getting a lot of questions on what kind of glue I use. It has to be cyanoacrylate based. If it's labeled anything else but cyanoacrylate, it's not safe. Because it contains some sorts of solvents. So once super glue is dry, the cyanoacrylate based one, it becomes inert, it becomes a form of plastic. So that's what makes it safe. Okay, so all the gluing is done, everything is nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. There are some glue spots at the front that are actually quite visible. And even though I am going to add a little bit of moss on top, I do want to hide them. So I'm going to crush up some aqua soil, put some super glue on top of the glue spot and just sprinkle it. So then it's just going to hide it, it's going to be less visible. It is looking a lot better now with all the glue spots nice and covered. It really looks nice and clean. So now we can move along to planting. Okay, so let me show you my plant assortment. I have Hygrophila pindophila, so this is one of my favorites. I really do like them. They have like very, very cool details on the leaves. And then I have some Riccardia moss. So not a lot of plants here, but again, very minimal planting style. So the goal here with the Riccardia moss is really to come and highlight some of the very, very cool parts of the hardscape. So it's not to be completely covered, just to highlight it. So that technique is actually called greening. It's just coming and adding very small details where it counts. So I don't know if you guys can see exactly what I'm doing right now. It's just really small highlights on some of the pieces of wood. And we can see like how much it just brings the hardscape, like a touch of color. And I really do like this technique. So you don't really need a lot of plants to do this, or moss even, because you can see like how small the quantities are for such a scape. But it really does add a lot of detail. Okay, so I finished with the Riccardia moss and I really like how it looks. You can see how it really highlights key points of the hardscape, so I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm just gonna glue down the pindophila in the little places and planting will be done. Okay, so we are completely done planting. I'm very happy with it. I think it's the less planted tank I've ever done. And it's just very hardscape heavy, but I'm slowly moving away from heavily planted tanks and really working on my hardscape. So it's been really fun. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place the tank on its little stand. I'm gonna fill it up. If you guys are wondering where this little stand is from, I made it. My woodworking skills are not the best, but I don't think it looks too bad. We are now the next day because somebody forgot to film the outro. So yesterday what I did, I just filled the tank, I fitted the small internal filter. I still have a lot of stuff to do, like light settings, cable management, basic stuff when you set up a tank. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the scape now that the tank is completely filled. So it's only been a day and I can already see like a bunch of fungus already growing on the wood. We can see it like these white fluff on some pieces of the wood. So that is completely normal. Especially like the first few weeks of setting up a tank with a lot of wood, it's bound to happen. So it's really going to go through a very ugly phase in the next couple of weeks, but again, it's normal and it's also part of the process. This tank is also going to be running without CO2, so it's going to take a little while for it to start looking good, so I'm going to have to be quite patient with that. But it's also going to be a very low maintenance tank, and that's something I'm looking forward to because I do have a lot of tanks and I kind of want this one to be very low maintenance and not have to do a lot with it. So guys, as always, thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you next Monday for a new video. So last month I scaped this tank for my Better Fish Dimitri. So this build was inspired by the film Sleepy Hollow from Tim Burton. So if you haven't seen part one, I'm going to insert the playlist card just above if you guys want to check that out. So this scape started off pretty well. I had a lot of fun scaping the tank, planting it, until a few days later, after filling up the tank, I realized that nothing was going to go as intended. So after filling up the tank, there was kind of this normal occurrence, which is a bacterial bloom. There was also some fungus growing on the wood, so nothing, too dramatic at the start. And then it gradually got worse. So the fungus really developed very, very fast, and it started to grow over the plants. And same thing for the bacterial bloom. It started to get more and more intense. And I know that when this happens, it's already too late. So what it does, it actually starts to kill off the plants, especially when, like me, you've added very sensitive plants. The following week, the bacterial bloom had finally cleared and I could actually see the damage that has been done. So we can clearly see on these images that nothing is salvageable. We see that everything has completely melted off. The plants don't have that vibrant green color anymore, and we can see they've really died off. So when you add some new wood into the tank, there's going to be fungus that grows on it. So it's mold or saprophytic fungus that feeds on organic materials released by the wood. And when that spreads to moss or to other epiphytes, it can block their access to light, to nutrients, and it also produces harmful bioproducts. So that really weakens and kills the plants, causing them to melt. We can clearly see the only moss that survived is the one that was completely out of the water column. So at this point, there was not much I could do. I could see that everything was completely gone and nothing was salvageable. So what I decided to do is just to take a toothbrush and to go over all the hardscape, cleaning off all the dead plant matter, and really just going over the whole tank like that. So what I could have done to avoid this fungal problem is it's often best to let the tank cycle on its own without any plants at first. You can even dark cycle it, which is even better. That way you can let the water parameters stabilize and the fungus to die off before you introduce your plants, especially if, like me, they were sensitive plants. So once everything is stable, then you can add your moss, your epiphytes, and they just have a better chance at thriving. So often you can get away with not dark cycling your tank or pre-cycling your tank before you plant it. Well, in this case, I didn't get away with it. Most of the time I do, this time I didn't. We are now 3 weeks later. The tank has finally settled down. Everything is nice and stable. The tank is also cycled. So because it's nice and stable now, I'm going to plant it all over again. So because all the Ricardian moss has melted off, like the only part that stayed alive is just this part that is above the waterline. I obviously don't have any more to plant, so I'm going to be using a different kind of moss. I'm going to be using weeping moss. So hopefully that will turn out just as good. So because I had the intention of breaking down this small tank, I just decided to harvest a lot of the moss from this initial tank. Why am I breaking this tank down? It's just too difficult to maintain. It's very hard to access because of Hardscape, and I just decided that I wanted something a lot easier to maintain. So I was going to harvest as much moss as I could from this setup. So initially I did want my better tank to be very low maintenance. That's why I had chosen Ricardia moss, because it does grow quite slowly. Unfortunately, weeping moss for me really does grow very, very fast. So I'm going to really have to keep on top of my trimming in my better tank if I don't want it to be very grown over in a matter of weeks. So after taking down the water level, it was time to start planting the tank. So because I had brushed off all the moss, I could clearly see all the glue spots that were left from the first time I planted the tank. So I just decided to really carefully trace back over these glue spots so I would get exactly the same planting pattern as in part one. So as you guys can imagine, this process was extremely long. It was extremely tedious, just replacing all the moss onto the wood. So I'm going to spare you guys that. I'm just going to like fast forward the whole process. So this probably took me something like an hour to an hour and a half to completely retrace the whole planting pattern, to glue the moss on. And again, when I'm gluing moss, I want to be really careful in how I position it, because otherwise you can just see the glue spots coming through the moss. So that it doesn't really matter, because in a couple of weeks it's just going to grow over those glue spots and it's not going to be visible anymore. But obviously when you're filming content, you want things to kind of look as good as they possibly can. So that's why I'm being very careful in the way I'm positioning my moss. My forest aquascape also needed kind of a big trim back. So what I'm doing here is I'm just, again, taking some plant cuttings from the tank. So this is Hygrophila pinda, just like in part one. I didn't have to glue this one down with super glue. I just decided to wedge it in the little cracks of the hardscape. It just made things a lot faster, and in a couple of weeks the roots are just going to bound themselves to the hardscape, so they will stay nicely into place. So some of the leaves on the Hygrophila pinda are kind of big. That's okay. As soon as they adapt to the tank, I will just be trimming them down. So the more I'm going to trim it, the more the growth is going to be nice and compact, and the leaves also nice and small. Wanted to show you guys as well how seriously Shelby takes her position as the gardener. She loves to edge the lawn to keep everything nice and clean. So after another week of letting the tank sit, I added a heater, I checked all the parameters, and I finally added Dimitri, which is my better fish. So I have to say, he settled in really fast to this tank. I can see like he really likes the hardscape, because he likes to swim in between the hardscape. He's made like a small cave section also where he likes to chill out at the very bottom of the tank. And at the very top of the tank, there's a small piece of wood that he just uses as his bed. It's like a very small hammock where he likes to chill out on, so that's pretty cool. So like a lot of better fish owners, I don't really know with precision how old Dimitri is, so my estimate is that he's very close to 2 years old. I can see that these last few months he's really kind of slowed down. He is less active, even though I'm feeding him a lot of live foods, a lot of high quality foods. He's kind of like a slower fish. So this will be his last tank. It's going to be his kind of last residence where he can like chill out. I also am going to be adding some shrimp pretty soon. I'm part of that lucky team where my better fish is just not interested in shrimp, like not the slightest. So he's more interested in his pellets really. And the plants in the tank have also been doing pretty well. So we can see the weeping moss here is slowly growing into that classic downwards pattern. So it's going to look more and more mature as it grows out. So I'm really happy with that. And we can see Dimitri chilling in that little cave section I was talking to you guys about earlier on. So this is something that I really love about this tank, is like he has a whole section at the bottom just to be able to chill out and to also get away from the light sometimes. Some scapes can take more time to mature than others, and I just think this scape is just part of those ones. It's going to take a while for it to reach its peak. So yeah, sometimes the results here on my channel aren't as spectacular as I would like them to be, but yeah, sometimes we all run into some kind of setbacks, especially with aquascaping. It's part of the hobby. So I like to keep things real here on the channel, and I like to film the whole process, even if it's setbacks, if it's minor issues, and not just film the final result. So yeah, I just like to keep things real here. That said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next Monday for a new video. I think we can all agree that 5 months later, the tank is looking so much more different. It's looking very overgrown. I haven't been on top of trimming. This is 2 months of not trimming the tank, so this just comes to show, if you don't keep on top of your moss, what can happen. So at this point, I'm at the point of no return. I would have to start ripping the moss out. I think trimming here is not even an option anymore, but it does look amazing. So a little bit on the inhabitants of this tank. So everybody knows Dimitri by now, if you've been following the channel for a while. So despite him now being over 2 years old, he's still doing pretty well. So he has significantly slowed down. He isn't as active as he was, but I still think he's doing pretty well for a betta fish that is now over 2 years old. This is personally the only betta fish I've owned that gets along so well with shrimp. He doesn't bother for them at all. It's like they don't exist. So he's sometimes not the biggest fan of the snails. He will peck them off for glass if they're really in his viewing point. He will do that, but other than that, he is absolutely not an aggressive fish. So not everybody is going to be able to get away with having shrimp and betta fish together. It just really depends on the personality of your betta. A little bit about the shrimp. The shrimp have literally had a massive population explosion. I only started off with, I think it was 6 to 7 mixed shrimp. So I don't really have a problem in some of my tanks in mixing some shrimp together. That's fine with me. I don't really care for it. But the population have just exploded. There's a lot of tiny little babies as well in this tank at this current moment. So the shrimp are thriving, and as they should be, because there's just so much moss in this tank. There's absolutely no reason why the population wouldn't explode. And like I said, Dimitri doesn't really care for them. I have personally never seen him take a shrimp down in the 2 years I've had him now. So yeah, he's pretty good. Okay, so that's the end of this week's video. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week for a new video.